And welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Bold Business Breakdown. I'm your host, Rebecca Nordquist.
And I'm also your host, Sebastian Sanchez.
Today we have another very exciting episode for you today. We're going to bring on a very well-known finance professor here at NMSU. She's famously name-dropped multiple times throughout our episodes, and she's our biggest supporter, Professor Paula Groves.
Yes, to give a little more information on Paula Groves, first of all, she is an New Mexico State alum, but even more so, she has an extensive background in finance with experience as a financial analyst for companies such as Honeywell. And now she's been a finance professor here at NMSU for 13 years.
Yeah, and we're just so excited to have her on. We know we learn a lot from her, and we hope that you guys do as well. And we hope that you take this time to
be bold
and shape the future. All right, everybody, so we're here with our guest, Professor Groves. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you two?
Good.
We're doing awesome.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. No, I mean, to our viewers, we've brought up Paula Groves a lot, and when we reference like finance and things that we do. So you've been a big part in terms of like what we learn and stuff like that.
Yeah. We both took business finance with Professor Groves, so we've taken a lot from her, learning from her. So we're really excited to have you on too, to finally let the users get a face or a name to the face.
Yeah, so just to get us started, would you mind telling us, the viewers, just a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Sure. Great. Well, I'm an Aggie. I'm an Aggie alum. I went to NMSU. I have a bachelor's degree in finance and a master's of business administration and finance from NMSU. And then when I graduated, I went out and I went into the world of finance, and I worked as a corporate financial analyst. I worked in a lot of different industries. I worked in banking. I worked for the federal government. I worked in defense aerospace manufacturing. I worked for a real estate investment trust. I worked in wireless communications. I worked in agriculture. Worked in a lot of different industries. And then in January of 2011, I taught my first class. And I just got really hooked on being a teacher and being able to share what I learned and the important things that I used in my career and in my daily life with students. So it's been 13 years. I've been a teacher for 13 years. It's kind of crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, I didn't know your resume was so like extensive in aerospace and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had a great career in corporate finance. Absolutely loved it.
And what got you into finance in the first place?
Well, interestingly, I came into NMSU. I was 17 when I started my freshman year, and I thought I wanted to be a professional musician. I was a French horn player.
I've been there. Yeah.
And I wanted to play in a symphony. That's what I wanted to do for my life. And then I started to research, well, what would that look like? And I decided that I really needed to be able to eat, pay rent, this sort of thing. Yes. So I had to decide to study something else. And I was always good at math. And so I thought, well, I'll come to the College of Business and I'll major in finance or accounting and see what happens. And my freshman year, in fact, my first semester, I met a finance professor. His name was Dr. Clark Hawkins. And he was the most amazing professor and mentor for me. He had been a professional bond trader. And he was educated at the Wharton School of Business, which is actually more famous for business than Harvard. And then became a professor a little bit later in life and was over in Arizona and then came to NMSU. That's awesome. And he just really sparked something in me, and I never changed my major from finance, which is unusual. So I've been studying finance since I was 17 years old, which has been a long time. And there's just so many cool things about it. You interact with finance in your daily life. The principles of finance never change. Even though there's innovation in finance, the basics never change,
That is
which
true.
was always very comforting to me. There are so many neat career opportunities in finance. I mean, I did get a master's degree, though it's not necessarily required. But I never had to go back to school in order to learn the fundamentals. I just had to learn how to apply those things in the different industries in which I worked. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And I just would have to say that Dr. Hawkins, we called him Uncle Hockey
Uncle Hockey.
back in the day, and
that.
he was just an amazing mentor. And then I had another professor here who I ended up being a colleague with later in life, Dr. Rich Fortin. He retired from NMSU just a few years ago. And Uncle Hockey and Dr. Fortin really showed me how exciting finance could be, and how great of a career it could give me, and the ability to translate those into my personal financial goals, and to be able to do what I wanted and achieve what I wanted. So it's it's been a long time.
The big long time.
But I have never gotten bored.
Yeah.
That's good, actually. Yeah.
That is good.
And that's a lot of people can't say that about their career. And again, the most amazing thing about being a finance professional is that you can work for any company in any industry, and you can really harness those skills with something that you like and that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think you can really make a difference in people's lives.
And you continue to learn. You say, like, finance, the basics don't change. But I know in your classes you're always talking about the new things that are going on in companies. Like, I know last semester was really big with because some companies are going bankrupt. So
yes. And so it's great. The fundamentals never change, but you can just continue to build on those principles,
and apply it like that.
which is really unique, I think, to finance compared to a lot of things.
I think since we work with Carlos Cuesta, and we can tell that just in entrepreneurship, even just starting your own business, like, finance does everything for you, and you need to know all of it. So, and we can tell that you're very passionate in your class, and that you just love finance, and it really, it just shows through the way that you teach and everything. So yeah, thank you for telling your background. It was really good for us to know that, because we're learning
of a funny
that
story, but yes.
Yeah. And it actually leads us right into our next question, which is, since it's Financial Literacy Month, we want to know, what does financial literacy mean to you? And like, how do the basic fundamentals, why are they so important for people to know within finance?
So really, and again, one of the reasons I connected with finance so early on in life is that you cannot live without money. You cannot live without money, even though you can be altruistic and wish that, you didn't need money in order to do things. This is just the way of the world, right? And depending on what kind of a background you come from, everyone has an emotional connection with money, either positive or negative. And and in every way, finance and the way you interact with finance determines a positive or negative trajectory in your life. And if you can get a handle on that at an early age and just understand a few basic fundamental principles of that, then I think anyone can meet their personal financial goals. That looks different for a teacher than it does for a chemical engineer, just because of the amount of income that you make. But you would be surprised to know that there are more teachers who are millionaires than there are chemical engineers. And so you can really harness the beauty of finance in your life, regardless of the amount of income that you make. And I think that the reason I am so interested in financial literacy and encouraging people to study finance and learn about finance and then apply that in your own personal life is because we all have goals and dreams.
We do.
And I tell my students, you guys have heard me say this, financial management is something active. It's an active thing. It's not a passive discipline. And so you can learn some really easy basics. And as long as you have discipline and apply those actively in your life can be made better.
Yes.
By an understanding of finance.
Yes.
And I'm all about making anybody's life better,
That's
right?
awesome.
So I think that that knowledge, that basic financial literacy, if you can embrace that, and at any age really, but if you especially embrace it as a young college student, there's so many things that you can achieve that it just you're really going to minimize the stress in your life. And you could do just so many great things. If you don't have to worry about paying your bills, if you're not constantly worried about how am I going to get money for rent, how am I going to get money for food, how am I going to get money for my basic needs. If you can cover those things, then you can do things that you're passionate about. You can support charitable causes. You can give to people. You can create amazing enterprises that will employ people and make other people's lives better, and just it's just super exciting for me. But you have to do it.
Yes.
And the thing I can't teach you is to be disciplined about it.
Well, going off of that, I know you kind of hit some of the misconceptions that people might come across, but were there any more throughout like your career as a financial analyst and working with people and companies and just different types of finances, and even teaching it in a class? Is there any misconceptions that young people maybe come across when they're starting their financial journey?
Oh, absolutely. It's the one thing that I hear over and over again is I don't make enough money to save money. And that's a trap that we can get into for our entire life, right? Because again, as I said earlier, there are more teachers who are millionaires than in a lot of other professions. And the reason there are more teachers who are millionaires is because they are in essence forced to save for their retirement by working for a public school system and participating in a state public retirement plan. And so when you become a teacher, you're usually pretty young, you're usually in your early 20s, and you immediately have to start saving for retirement.
Yes.
It's not an option, it's compulsory, right? And so those teachers, even though their income is lower, they immediately funnel money into their future, regardless of whether they want to, right? And so what ends up happening is they do not earn as much income throughout their lives as some other professions, but they end up with a better quality of life in the future because of it. And the real crux of the issue on that is something called the time value of money, which is the fundamental principle of finance, which is you can save a very small amount of your income as long as you start early. Because you, in some respects, can't catch up later because time goes away. Nothing else goes away, and your income earning might grow exponentially, but you're always losing that benefit of time every day that goes by. And so if you start earlier and harness just the beauty of the time value of money, you can save a very little amount of money and have that grow at whatever rate you're comfortable with based on your risk tolerance, and have a lot more money later on and sacrifice a lot less now. It's a lot easier to sacrifice when you don't have a lot of money than it is when you do have a lot of money. And so I think that really is the thing that I hear over and over again is I don't make enough money to save money. And I think that that's a big trap we can get ourselves into.
No, yeah, a lot nowadays. A lot of people put in positions where they're being more financially aware, because back then, I feel like especially some people's parents, they were like grown without that financial literacy. So finance can be a very taboo topic when it comes to talking about it amongst families. But nowadays we have things like, we have professors and we have things that help us be able to retire and put in money early. So when we get out in the future, we have like, resources, and we're not just living off of our Social Security, like you say.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm a mom. I have 2 daughters. They're grown up. One's a college graduate, and she's doing great.
That's awesome.
She's, a self-sustaining adult. She bought a house at age 22. And she lives, unfortunately, way too far away. My other daughter is a college student, also doing great. Even as a mom, when they would ask me, how much did that cost? My first gut feeling was to say, it's none of your business. And then I had to step back and say, whoa, I can't say that. I'm a finance professional. I cannot tell my girls that this is none of their business. But that's because, again, of this emotional connection with money. This money has a lot of negative impacts in our life, the lack of money or too much money or spending money on things that aren't important or prioritizing money over relationships. And so we really, as parents, I would encourage people who are parents to talk to their kids about money.
Yes.
But a lot of parents don't know about money themselves, right? And so I think there's a lot of wonderful resources out there for people to expose themselves to now. As far as the internet, we have these wonderful podcasts like what you guys do. We have all kinds of amazing personal finance resources. Even on social media, you can follow personal finance professionals, and they can give you all kinds of tips, and then you can synthesize that information and use it in your own life, right, in whatever way is appropriate for you.
Yes.
And that's the great thing about it, is that finance is a personal thing. I might have a goal to save up enough money to take a trip. Sebastian might have a goal to be a homeowner. Rebecca might have a goal to take her parents on a vacation for all of the things that they've done for her, right? All of those are very different goals. The amount of time that you would need to save up for that goal is different. The magnitude and dollar amount of the goal is different. And they're all very personal to you and your own circumstances, right? And so if we can figure that out, if we can figure out what our goals are, and we can work toward those goals, we're more successful in everything, but especially with money. And so what I've tried to teach my daughters is to find out what is important to you and to work toward that. And so my older daughter decided that owning a home was much more important to her at a young age. And so she worked to save money for that while she was still a college student.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
And she is a hard worker and did great. And I mean, she worked sometimes 3 jobs and was a full-time college student. And so when you're driven and you have that discipline and you understand what's important to you, then you can focus your energy actively and do those things, right? Whereas, some 22-year-olds do not want to be homeowners. It comes with a lot of other things, right? Lack of mobility and some things. So it's not all roses. Being a homeowner is not for everyone. But she decided that was for her. And so I didn't own a home at 22. Wow, that's a much different scenario. And so, but just the most important thing to know and understand is that if you make it a priority, these are things that you can actively make happen in your life.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people feel like money is out of their control.
Right.
And some things are out of our control, right? But focusing on those things that we can control and working toward those things, I think will lead to a better life all around.
Yeah, I'm really happy that they have those kinds of resources, because I feel like that is a really big misconception and thing that a lot of people struggle with. Like, we have resources for all kinds of math and science, and we've had those for a while, but money has been a very new thing that people are like, okay, we're going to teach this in class, and you even go to elementary schools and teach kids about it. And so I think that that's so awesome. And we took a lot away from, especially I personally took a lot away from retirement. And we did an episode recently on retirement, but we'll for the sake of the podcast, we won't ramble on too much about that. But I want to ask you, is there anything that you find really important with that concept that you want to share, specifically just around retirement, since that's something that they can do sooner?
Yes, a couple of things. We often feel like we can only do one thing or another, meaning we can only focus on meeting our current needs, and we cannot also focus on our future financial needs as well. And I think that's a big misconception. I think life in all areas is about balance. And if we figure out a formula for us for that balance early on, we can really be successful in multiple areas. It doesn't have to be an all or a nothing kind of a scenario. And I think that's why people don't prioritize retirement savings at an early age. They are under the misconception that I will always have time to do that. And then all of a sudden, you're 40 years old and you have no money saved for retirement. And I have some bad news, the time will not come back, right? So if I could give a gift of anything to anyone, I would say as soon as you turn 18 years old and you have earned income, you should set up a Roth IRA.
Yes.
And put as little money as you can afford into it and grow it. And when you have enough money to start actively investing that, you should invest it in what is appropriate for you. And you should not touch it, and do not take money out of your retirement account for anything other than retirement. This is one of the biggest financial mistakes that people make. And I try not to be a never person. I try to never say never, but I'll say never take money out of your retirement for anything except income in retirement. And that's because you can't get it back. You can't get the positive effect of the time value of money back. And you are literally sacrificing your future for your present. So there's always a way around some of these financial issues that we might think about, as far as times we would be tempted to dip into our retirement savings for things that aren't retirement related. You can take on temporary debt. You can try to earn additional income. You can change your circumstances in other ways. And one of the things that I taught my daughters was to save early for retirement, and so they both have retirement plans. They both already have Roth IRAs. My older daughter has a thrift savings plan because she's a federal employee. And even if they don't put any additional contributions into those Roth IRAs, they will have money for retirement.
No, that's really good. Like you said, it's not black and white. I mean, it's more than that. People often, like you said, they think it's, I could only do this, or if it's this, but it takes a lot of commitment to be able. Finance is very committed. You have to be able to just sit down with yourself and just discuss, like set up a budgeting table and
Well, and you have to be really honest with yourself about money, and people don't like to be honest with themselves.
Especially at a young age, people, at a young age, people can't.
Yeah, and so this is it. Budgeting is hard.
Yes.
Saving is hard. All of these things are difficult. I will not tell you they are easy, because that would not be the truth. And I think there are a lot of personal finance gurus out there that say, oh, this is so easy, I don't know why you don't do this, and they sort of shame people into this, and that's not the tactic to take in my mind. My mind is to admit that it's difficult and do it anyway. Because it's so valuable, not just for your present, but for your future as well. It's worth it. All of the hard stuff is worth it in life. And money is hard. And dealing with your attitudes with money is hard. And getting a handle on your money is hard. It is hard. I will not tell you that it's not. making a budget is hard. This is why a lot of people start making a budget and they stop. They also feel like they fail, right? They feel like if I can't stick to this budget, I'm a failure in some way. That is not true. Every single human being on this planet is going to mess up with money, myself included. And I have degrees in finance. I have decades of experience in finance. I managed $750 million a day for a corporation. And thank goodness I didn't mess up with their own money, but I will mess up with my money, and I will continue to do that because people aren't perfect. And once you can admit, I'm not perfect, I'm going to make mistakes with money, but try to learn from those mistakes and have goals set forward. And, winning the lottery is not a goal. Right? So what can I do in spite of that? What can I do instead of that? What can I really do to meet these goals on these things that are important to me? And it's not all about material things either, right? Because a lot of people do really great things with money. People's lives are improved. We can create scholarship funds for students. We can give money to charitable causes. We can promote our religious organizations, the Red Cross, NMSU Foundation. All of these wonderful things are things that we can improve other people's lives using our own money. And so I think if we can focus first and early on improving our own life, then we can do those things later on. And we can support other people. We can, lots of people want to leave money to their children or grandchildren, right? Well, if you're worried about paying your rent and you haven't saved for your retirement at age 40, you're not going to leave any money behind. So start thinking about those things early. And with a little bit of discipline and honesty with yourself, I think you can make it happen. And again, if your goal is to buy a Lamborghini, and you're a chemical engineer, you're going to reach that goal faster than if you're a teacher. As long as you don't waste a bunch of money on other things. But can both people reach that same goal? Yes. It's just about what are you willing to sacrifice to get there, and how long is it going to take you?
Sorry. We were so invested in your conversation. We're like, we want more. We want more.
But I guess shifting the conversation a bit into the financial world itself, what's something that's new in the financial world that's kind of caught in your attention, that's could be fintech, that's catches your attention? What's something new from the fintech world that's...
Oh my gosh. So fintech is so cool. It is so cool because it really, again, it takes these fundamental principles of finance. And I think the most exciting thing about fintech is that it uses our technology that we interface with on a daily basis now in order to get the word out about finance to the everyday person, right? Whereas in order to get information about finance and get that understanding about finance, you would have to take a class before, or it would be taught by your parents, or you'd sit down at the bank and talk to somebody or something like that. And I think the world of fintech has brought financial, the impact of the financial industry and the positive pieces of finance and how we interact with organizations to the forefront. Which is awesome and just amazing, right? And the fact that we can do things like execute a stock trade in our own brokerage account within literally 3 seconds. If you execute a buy order in a brokerage account and you do a market order, the average time that takes to execute is about 3 seconds. Whereas when I started studying finance, you would have to set up a brokerage account. You would have to call your stockbroker. This would take 2 or 3 days. And people didn't have access to that. Only rich people really invested in stocks, right? And now these investments and these different platforms and different ways of interfacing with money through these amazing just explosions in the fintech industry can really make us more in control of our own money.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Which
yeah.
I think is the most exciting thing about fintech, is that your financial future really is no longer in someone else's hands.
Right.
And so that's just super exciting.
No, yeah. I mean, I have to agree. There's apps, and then there's things always coming in the news about fintech. I mean, in terms of like relations with the banks as well, and it's still such a new thing because there's still a lot of regulation going on how it works. But
Right.
at the end of the day, I mean, looking at like the where it's going, at the end of the day, it's gonna really benefit students, or I mean anyone.
For sure.
Anyone,
No,
yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you have to embrace it,
Yes.
and you have to use it in the right way too, right? Because there are some, just like with
Sketchy.
everything else, there are downsides.
Yeah.
But we need to embrace the good things about it, and we really need to think about though protecting ourselves in some ways that we can really protect ourselves, right? Because there are a lot of bad things that come from a life online as well. So I'll share with you guys something completely personal that just happened to me this week. I got a letter in my mailbox. Most people don't get letters anymore. I actually got a letter. It was from a bank, and it said, thank you so much for applying for our credit card, but we cannot continue to process your credit card application because your credit is frozen and we can't access your credit. There are 3 major credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, and you have a credit score and credit report on all 3. And one of the tools that you can use in order to prevent identity theft is to go on and sign up for a free account with these 3 companies, and you can place a free freeze on your credit so that people cannot access and download your credit information without your authorization. Well, guess what? Clearly someone tried to apply for a credit card using my identity.
Oh my gosh.
And the only reason they did not successfully do that is because I had my credit frozen.
Wow.
So this stuff happens to everybody,
Yes.
even finance professors, right? I mean, it's not, identity theft is all over the place. It's rampant. It can, I don't want to say ruin your life, but just about ruin your life if your identity gets stolen and people take out mortgages in your name and buy things and do all this credit card debt and things like this. So we need to embrace fintech and the tools that we have to use in order to also protect ourselves from the bad parts.
Yes. No. Yeah. I mean, I think finance is one of the largest targets in terms of cybersecurity.
Definitely.
Just
And it didn't cost me anything to go out on the internet and place a freeze on all of these things. And so I recently bought a new house in November. So when I was getting ready to apply for a mortgage for that house, I just had to go in and unfreeze for a couple of days so the bank could get my credit, refreeze. Thank goodness I did, right?
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, I would guess that someone searched public records and found that I had gotten a recent mortgage and tried to take advantage of that and apply for this credit card. But so I'm not worried about it. I did go in and check my credit, make sure it was still frozen and what have you, and make sure nothing appeared on my report. But can you imagine the panic that you would get finding out that someone took out a credrit card in your name?
Yeah. And if you didn't have that, resource or technology there to save that from happening.
Right? And that's an amazing new technology, right? The credit freeze, being able to access your credit report online yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, we had to send away for our credit report, and it would take 3 weeks, and you would get it back in the mail, and then you had to do all this, disputing on paper and all of this other stuff if something went wrong. And so, I mean, this is an awesome thing about financial technology and the ability to access things online, and it's also a scary thing, right? But again, embrace the positive part. And you both know that I'm all about positive thinking and also taking control. where you can take control.
Yeah.
Because I bet no other friend or family member of mine has a freeze on their credit report. I bet they don't. I would almost bet money. Even though I've told them to do this, even though I tell them it's available, right? I'm probably the only nerdy finance person out there, in my circle that has this. But guess what? I just prevented myself from having my identity stolen.
Yeah.
Your credit score ruined. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it could have been real bad.
Yeah.
But because I was smart about it, because I embraced the fintech industry, right, and did the things that I needed to do, then now I'm not worried about it. It was like, oh yeah, great, here we go, okay, I'll double check this, and it was a non-event in my life.
Non-event.
Well, going off of this topic, because this is really interesting, especially when, and even later investing, all the new trends that come up and all this stuff. And you can be as vague as you want to be or how comfortable, say whatever you're comfortable saying.
Sure.
But when it comes to like new trends that are coming up, is there anything that you see affecting the market that, people could be aware of, or how to be adaptable, or even just like kind of how to be more adaptable to those changes that we face when we're going to invest or...
Sure. I think there are really two keys to investing and also navigating some of these new things that happen in the market. One is to understand your personal risk profile.
Okay, yes.
Right? And to understand what you are willing to risk in terms of money. Some people are very risk averse, meaning they don't like risk, they don't like to take risk. Typically this plays out in your own personal life and the things that you will or will not do, and also spills over into your attitude about money. Some people are willing to risk a lot in terms of money. But understand the difference between risk and uncertainty. Because in finance, we can quantify risk, we cannot quantify uncertainty. And so these are two big differences that we need to understand if we are going to enter into investing in anything. And so this is not just for stocks and bonds and real estate and things like this, right? People will invest in a lot of different things. They will invest in baseball cards.
Yes.
They will invest in antique furniture. They will invest in Beanie Babies or whatever the trend, right, is. Remember the whole Beanie Baby thing?
Yeah.
So people will think they're investing their money for their future, and they won't understand the difference between risk and uncertainty. So I think that's super important. The second thing is, and this was... Dr. Hawkins, Uncle Hockey, gave us his 10 investment rules, and he taught us these as finance majors. Well, now I share these in my personal finance class, and you don't have to be a finance major in order to take that class. It's a Viewing the Wider World University class, available to anybody of any major. And one of the rules that, Uncle Hockey taught me a million years ago, it seems like now, is understand the difference between an investment and a speculation.
Okay.
And really, in order to do this, we have to understand what this terminology means, right? What is a speculation? Well, a speculation is more of a gamble or a bet, whereas investing is something that we can quantify. An investment is something that we can expect mathematically a reasonable return on.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So if somebody stopped you in a dark alley and said, hey, Sebastian, I can double your money on this, right? Just hand it over. Give me $1,000 and I'll double your money in 30 days. That is not an investment. Right? That is a speculation.
Yes.
Right? Actually, that's probably somebody trying to steal $1,000 from Sebastian in a dark alley. But that is not an investment, right? There's no reasonable estimation that you can make mathematically that you're going to get a return on this investment. That's just somebody saying this, right?
Yes.
So you can't. There's no risk there. There's just 100% uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right.
There we go.
Right? And so if you can understand what you're investing in. And so another of Uncle Hucky's rules was invest in what you know.
Oh yeah, that's.
Don't invest in things you don't understand. So one of the things I see that's a risk out there in the environment is cryptocurrencies. That's because who can explain to me what cryptocurrency is? Who can actually explain to me what it is? I would guess that not that many people can do that.
It's very.
And if you can't explain it, if you can't understand it enough to explain it, is that something you should be putting your money into? Maybe not. Well, so what's the solution to that? Learning about it, understanding the portion of that that is risk and the portion of that that is speculation, because I still believe, and some people will not agree with me on this, and that's okay, but I still believe that cryptocurrency is speculation. And that's because we just don't have a good understanding of what the future is going to look like here, right? There's no standard in cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And so until there is, at least some of the activity in cryptocurrency is speculative. Is there anything wrong with that? Not necessarily, as long as you understand that. Right? As long as you understand, I am speculating with this portion of my money. So you don't want to speculate with the rent money. You don't want to speculate with your food money, your car payment money, your insurance money, right? But is there anything wrong with being a financial speculator? Not necessarily, as long as that's within your risk tolerance and you can afford it, right? You don't take your scholarship money, which you're supposed to be spending on books and housing, and put it into crypto. This is not appropriate, right? It's actually also not legal to do that, really, because you're supposed to be spending the scholarship money on stuff related to school, or student loan money or what have you, right? But so am I completely against speculation? Absolutely not. It's just that this is going to be your extra stuff. If something happens to it, awesome. But you could also lose all of it. And so what you should also understand is if you invest your money, you can lose it. And this is what makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. But I guess the third thing that I would say to understand, so the first thing is the difference between risk and uncertainty. The second thing is the difference between investing and speculation. And the third thing is really the difference between emotionally jumping on a bandwagon because it's exciting and really thoughtfully planning for your financial goals, right?
Yeah.
I find that really helpful because even when I go into thinking about investing, I feel like that's usually what holds me back. And I feel like maybe even if it is speculation, educating yourself and taking the time to know and be certain of it. I mean, I'm a little scared of crypto, but I feel like there are people that it could become a certainty when they go and do the research and learn about it before they just go and throw their money into crypto. So that is a really good way to kind of like direction yourself accordingly before you go and just invest all your money.
Right.
So yeah, that's perfect. And I think that's really helpful for people to know. And I also like that you brought up Beanie Babies because
Yes.
I think we still have a box somewhere.
I definitely still have a box in the garage. Full disclosure, I didn't buy them, but yeah, I'm holding on to the Beanie Babies. You just never know.
You never know.
No, yeah. I mean, there's a lot when it comes to risk and learning what you lose. And one of your biggest sayings is invest what you're willing to lose, which is something like to this day I still carry on because it's very important to be able to invest as well. You to embrace the financial, the fintech.
Right. But
it's also important to be able to know what I'm capable of. I don't want to invest $300 if rent's coming up and I'd lose.
No, exactly. Yeah, and that's where people get themselves into trouble, and just not to be to focus on the downside, but we do have to think about the downside of finance, right? And a lot of our financial laws and regulations still stem from the Great Depression. And the stock market crash in 1927. And the reason that is because people's lives were so negatively impacted by this that, many people lost all of their money They couldn't see a way out of that, and they committed suicide. They jumped off of buildings.
Yes, no, yeah.
And believe it or not, people still do this today. And so we have to be very careful with this. We have to be very, very careful with not getting caught up in an investment is something that I can make money really quick on. That's actually not it. A speculation is something that you might be able to make money really quick on, but you also might lose all of your money. And so, again, would you take your rent money to Vegas and gamble that? Would you put your rent money in the Powerball, which is up to $1 billion, by the way, the next drawing? I often tell my students, Powerball is not a financial goal, right? It is, winning the lottery is not a financial goal. If you have an extra $20, is it okay to put it on a lottery ticket? If you believe that is an appropriate use of your money, absolutely. But you shouldn't be doing that with the rent money, right? Because this is where we get ourselves into these real life or death situations. Yes. And that's one of the reasons why we need to educate ourselves and understand if we're investing or we're speculating, and also try not to get caught up in the excitement part of it. Because the excitement part is great.
Yes.
But if we get caught up in excitement, sometimes we do stupid stuff in life. I mean, every aspect of our life. I was a young person one day, and I did plenty of stupid stuff, right, with my money or otherwise. And so we just have to be mindful of that. And if we can learn about it, understand ourselves and the amount of risk that we're willing to take, and then again, give ourselves permission to do the things that we want to do with money, as long as we're making smart choices the majority of the time. And also give ourselves a little bit of grace, because we're going to mess up. We're going to goof up. We're just try not to goof up with your rent money.
Yeah, no, definitely not. No, and I mean, when it comes to the business finance, and us being in Financial Literacy Month, what are some sort of resources that you may know online that people can go to if they're not unable to take a business finance class?
Sure. So there are some amazing websites. I'm not getting compensated by any of these websites, but I'll just tell you some of the things that I follow on social media, or just to go to Google, an internet search through Google or another search engine, and get some advice and information. On social media, there are so many awesome financial resources. I mean, your podcast is fabulous. We have, for NMSU, we have the Newsenda Center for Financial Capability. Yes. We've got the Arrowhead Center. We have all kinds of things that we can follow, locally through NMSU, but your local credit union, Newsenda Federal Credit Union, First Light Federal Credit Union, White Sands Federal Credit Union, One Source Federal Credit Union, those are all immediately come to mind as local credit unions in the Las Cruces area. Yeah. They've got a presence on social media. They all have financial literacy programs. So if you're a member of a credit union, you can access those resources for free, which is amazing, right? Banks didn't used to want to educate their people on money because that's how they make money, right? All of the major banks have financial literacy resources as well on their social media or on their websites. You can follow some who I call personal finance gurus. Some of the ones that I like are Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey has a religious basis for his personal finance, but that's not the reason I like him. The reason I like him is because he's lost all of his money twice. He went bankrupt twice because of stupid stuff that he did, and he learned from it, and he tries to share that with other people. He has a certain philosophy that you might not agree with, but you can follow him and learn, and then apply whatever applies to your life, right? But he has social media. I follow him on Instagram. He has some really good things on Instagram. He has a radio talk show, and he has a website, and you can sign up for email newsletters that have all kinds of tips. One person that you guys might not know who this person is, but I really enjoy following him. His name is Clark Howard. He's actually a consumer finance guy.
Okay.
So he talks about finding the best credit card for you. He talks about how to buy a car. He talks about what's the best high yield savings account. When to buy furniture. When is furniture on sale? I mean, because furniture is very expensive, right? And so when can you find good deals on these things that you need in everyday life? So Clark Howard is really cool. He has a YouTube, podcasts, all kinds of things. If you like videos, I am not typically a video resource person. I like to read a lot more. And the reason I do that is because and that's not that I don't watch videos, I do, but I also then like to read things about those because I find when I read it, I put it in my own voice. And so it's meaningful for me in a different way. Nerd Wallet, great resources. Great resources from Nerd Wallet. There's another website called Smart Asset. Smart Asset has some really cool tax information. If you guys are interested in learning more about taxes, they have some cool tax calculators. Bankrate.com, great, more nerdy finance on Bankrate.com, but you can follow interest rates and the trends in interest rates and do mortgage calculators and things like that on Bankrate.com. If you're interested in monitoring your credit, which again I would really highly recommend, Credit Karma. Credit Karma, great website. So there's just so many amazing tools out there where you can read, you can watch videos, you can listen to things. And then I'd also encourage people to just do things like look at the financial news on Yahoo Finance. I start my day, and you guys probably, I've already told you this, I wake up at 5:30 every morning, Monday through Friday, and I have coffee and breakfast, and I look at Yahoo Finance. Because this is what's going to tell me what's going on in the financial markets today. It doesn't cost anything. There's a ton of publicly available information. You can practice stock trading on Yahoo Finance. And you can look at the financial news and the news in the world, because it's not just financial news that will impact your pocketbook, but it's ongoing global events and how that translates into what's happening today and what we think is going to happen in the near term and in the long term also in finance. And so there's so many things that you can take advantage of that you can do on your time and on your schedule whenever that fits in for you.
Well, thank you for those.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm probably going to go home and rewatch this and find those because I find them.
And that's not. I mean, I'm sure there are so many others that I don't even know about. Those are just ones that I follow in my everyday life.
And also, if you are on campus, take business finance if you are able to.
Definitely Finance 303B, Personal Financial Planning. It's a great class. And then also, we have so many guest speakers that come in to campus and talk and share their experiences. And even if you're not a business major, you can come to those. They're all free. They're all available, and take advantage of the resources that we have on campus, the New Senda Center for Financial Capability, and they have budgeting workshops and Money 101 and guest speakers and all kinds of things. And a lot of those things are also available online.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there, so just to finish up, thank you for all those resources again, where we'll definitely go through and take a look at those ourselves. But is there any just last points that you want to add in just to finish up that we maybe didn't cover today that you find really important to talk about?
I think the most important thing to do, especially when we're talking about financial literacy or personal finance, is to not give up. Don't get discouraged, right? As I said earlier, finance is hard. Money is hard. Having enough money is difficult, right? We always, no matter what, even I think probably the wealthiest individuals wish that they had more control over their personal financial situation. And I think the key to that is making it a priority in your life early on if possible. And also embracing the notion that it's difficult but achievable. And just that don't give up attitude, that it's so important in life in general, but especially when we talk about finance and interfacing with money, it's super easy to feel like you are a failure. And I would encourage people to turn that into something positive, embrace the things that you can control and change and do better at, rather than constantly beating yourself up about not making the right choices, because we can really get ourselves into a negative spiral on that. And then where are you at? You haven't improved your life in any way. You're still in the same position you were in before. And not only that, but you're sad and depressed. So let's take that to a different level, right? And let's do things differently. And also give yourself permission to make mistakes with money, because you're going to. As long as you're alive and breathing, you're gonna make mistakes. And money is no different from any other area of our lives. Just try not to make the same mistake more than a couple of times, and try to learn from those things and improve. And the one really heartening thing I can say about personal finance is that although you are in a much better place if you start early on, you don't have to do that in order to be okay, right? The important part about it is to start, right? Just start, just do it. Do the hard stuff, and just, instead of worrying about it and being upset about it, embrace it, and just take the bull by the horns, as they say, you know, and go for it, and learn and change and grow with your attitude with money, grow with your attitude with finance, and share your experiences, positive and negative, with the people that you care about.
Thank you for ending that on a really good note, because I feel like definitely could be really discouraging at points when you're dealing with money. And so I think that was a really good way to finish it off. And I think also too, it's really helpful that you provided a resource where there was somebody that had failed with money, twice in their life, and had really, went bankrupt, and he still turned out okay. So it is doable. It's just, the right mindset.
For sure. And thanks for having me today. It's such an honor having been asked to be a guest. Yes. And I do watch your podcast, and I just absolutely adore it, and you do a great job, and this is a terrific resource for our NMSU community, and thank you for that.
No, and I just think it's amazing how, even when you were in college, you had your professors that influenced you, like you mentioned, Uncle Hockey and whatnot. But I think for us, being students and other finance students, or even business majors, they look to you as their inspiration for finance. So it's it's carrying on.
Wow. Yes. It really is just absolutely the biggest treasure in my life, other than being a mom, is to be able to use what I learned and what benefited me in my career and in my personal life to hopefully impart that upon my students and have them have a better future. Yes. That's what it's all about, right? It's all about, let's be in college, let's learn these things that we need to learn, let's go out there and make a difference in the workplace, let's go out there and make a difference in our personal lives. And as Aggies, we have a unique and common bond, and to be able to share that is just a super duper amazing experience for me. And I think that my students have no idea what a huge positive impact they have on my life. And that is just, it's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
You have impacted our lives in many ways.
Yes.
So, and we
well,
use your knowledge.
We've said your name a lot of times in the podcast too, so we have to.
I know my ears are burning.
But otherwise, I mean, that concludes the episode. Yeah.
Thank you both so much.
Thank
you. Thank you.